Okay, it's 12 o'clock. We certainly want to welcome everyone who are joining in for our first of our two-part series, webinar series on growing and marketing elderberries. I will be serving as your facilitator or moderator this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. My name is Baron Rogers. I am the coordinator for Extension Small Farm Program, headquartered here at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Princess Anne, I'm not there. We are all pretty much teleworking for the most part now. But our small farm program, our mission, of course, is to deliver educational programs that will help limited resource, small scale farmers or landowners to be able to own and operate their farms more successfully. The ways in which we go about doing that is we try to connect you with state and government programs that might be of benefit to you. We try to teach farmers or landowners how to become more business and market savvy. And then we also try to introduce clients to alternative crop enterprises that might have some profit potential. And that's kind of what we're going to be sharing with you today. We're very pleased that the small farm program, the team has developed a 2-acre site about 3 miles off of University campus where we showcase alternative crops, the production practices, as well as sustainable farming practices. So we're very pleased to have that. And hopefully, once restrictions go down a little bit, we can hopefully have you visit our nice campus farm. So I have some housekeeping reminders that I would like to go into just before we get started, and of course, introduce our panelists. First, for any attendees that have questions for our speaker, please utilize the Q&A section there at the bottom of your Zoom. You'll have a Q&A box. So if you type in a question that you want directed to our presenter, please utilize that component. And then our speaker will stop periodically throughout her presentation and entertain some of those questions that you have there in that section. And we'll do our best to try to answer all those questions that you have there. If you just want to just make a chat, maybe to our panelists, maybe, or perhaps fellow attendees, you can utilize the chat section. And we will also go through that as well, just in case if there's a question or something that's raised there as well. But we really want you to use the Q&A section for any questions directed to our presenter. Now, before we introduce our main speaker, I certainly want to acknowledge some of our other panelists that are on right now. I would like to introduce to you Dr. Nadine Burton Stubbs. Nadine, if you could just kind of wave your hand there so they can kind of put the name with the face. She is our alternative crop specialist here at UMES Extension. She received both her master's and PhD there at UMES, and so she works very heavily in specialty ethnic crops. And so she works very closely with our featured speaker. And so she will be on if she have any questions for her. She'll also get a chance to share with you some upcoming program events that she will be hosting or presenting later on in the month or in the coming months. I also want to acknowledge our ad communications specialist, Ms. Suzanne Street. Ms. Suzanne Street, if you can wave your hand to everyone. She's our ad communications person, so she's kind of responsible for putting everything together behind the scenes, so we certainly value her support. And so she'll be probably helping me out as well with the Q&A or addressing any questions or concerns that you may have within the chat section. So at this time, we would like to go ahead and introduce our speaker for this afternoon. Miss Henriette Ouden. She is our specialty herbs consultant here at UMES. She works with the small farm program. She's been working with us now for the past 3 years, where she's headed up our specialty herbs demonstrating garden project. She also works on other special projects for us. Now, she is also a master tea blender where she received a degree in herbalism from the Maryland University of Integrative Health. And she is co-owner of Habanero Farm, where she's been growing and drying herbs for over 15 years. So Henriette, she knows her stuff. And so we're very happy to be presenting this session on elderberries. And again, as I mentioned, this is the first of a two-part series. Henriette will probably go into a little bit more on what will be covered in our second part series. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn my attention over to Henriette.
Unmute. Thank you, Baron. Welcome everybody to this first Elderberry webinar. I'm very happy we have so many people signed up and present at the moment, because I really love elderberries. I love elderberry wine, the syrup, but I also really enjoy the growing, because it's a fun plant that you can use both the flowers and the berries. You can grow just a few, or you can grow 10 acres if you want. It's a plant with a lot of possibilities. Now, to make sure, this photo that you see, this is somewhere in the Midwest. The Midwest grows acres and acres of elderberries, and they also have a common processing center, which is something we don't have yet in the Maryland area. But with being a webinar, I don't know where everybody is. You might be close to the Midwest, which is still a huge area. But to make clear, we're talking about Sambuca nigra canadensis, which is the native elderberry to the United States and Canada. Contrary, we have the Sambucus nigra, which is a European elderberry that is limited to Europe and doesn't really grow well in the United States for whatever reason. The difference is the European berries are a little blacker, a little darker. They are really black, where the American ones are just very, very dark red, almost black. The European variety has been used more in medications than the American, which is probably not so much because of the berry, but more because the supplement industry in Europe has been using elder for forever, basically. Elder is a very old plant. It has been around longer than people, and it has been used by people as long as humanity has been walking around on this earth, mainly because you can eat it. It's a food. The berries are very healthy and easy to make into syrup or into wine. Lately, the last 20, 30 years, the elderberry has been used as a supplement. You can buy elderberry capsules. The syrup is being sold as a support for your immune system. It has some antiviral properties, which has made it extremely popular in the last year, obviously. It's also a cool plant for traditional reasons. It's a very settled plant. It's not going to disappear in the next 20 years. So if you make an investment, it will be a plant that will be attractive to grow for the next forever, for as long as we are walking around on this earth. The fun part of the elder, it's also been used as a toy. You can make toys for children. My brother and I, we used to make whistles from the stems. You can make them hollow. And you can use the berries for coloring of clothing. So lots and lots and lots of possibilities with this plant. I just want to start out with making clear I really think this is a plant of the future. This is not a plant that is just a popular plant for the next 10 years, mainly because it's healthy and it tastes well. All right, what we're going to do today, the characteristics of the elderberry. We want to know what we're growing. Requirements for the grow, how do I start it? How do I maintain it? How can I lose it? Then how do I harvest it? And a little bit, how do I start it? And we'll end with an estimate of can I make a profit with this if you are looking into this as a farmer, you're planning on doing several acres. And I made this calculation and I was like, man, I did something wrong. I should have planted my whole 20 acres with elderberries, but I didn't. And there is a reason I didn't. We'll get to that. If anybody has a question, please ask them. Oops, well, I cannot see if somebody asked a question, but maybe Suzanne can help me out here. Yes, this is an elderberry, in case you didn't know how they looked. They are little round berries. Before they are berries, they're little white flowers, a screen of flowers. The flowers are being used, the berries are being used. It's the discussion if we call it a tree or a bush. It's a multi-stem, it grows like whiteout. You'll see it native in the fields, a lot along the cornfields here on the Eastern Shore, because they do like a little extra fertilizer. But you have them along waterways. They grow basically anywhere where you don't really destroy the natural area. Harvest is in May, berries, the harvest of the flowers is in May, the berries is in July, August, or a little, it really depends where you are. The more north you are, the later the harvest. And also the cultivar that you're growing, there's quite a lot of difference in when you can harvest them. Source of food, this is cool if you grow them for your natural environment. You want to have like a buffer between you and the road or you and the river. It's a really good source of food for a lot of creatures, including birds and deer. So if you grow them to make your money, you might not be that excited about those lovers of the elderberry. Some parts are toxic. You don't want to eat raw, uncooked, fresh from the tree elderberries. You also have to be careful with those whistles that I said you can bake. The bark actually is toxic if you do eat it, really. Other thing that I like about the plant is it's a source of stories. There are so many stories about elderberries. If you like storytelling and you have kids, you can sit under the tree and find a story to tell to them, or make up a story. Somehow it inspires people to come up with stories because the shape of the tree is, you can sit underneath it and it's kind of protective. It's a safe tree to be with. It's seen as a spiritual plant. It's mentioned in the Bible. It's used by Native Americans often as an anchor for their gardens. It's seen as the boss of the garden. Although it's a female boss of the garden. The head nymph lives in the elderberry tree. I know when you're listening and you want to make a lot of money off the thing, you probably don't care. But if you cut down an elderberry tree, you destroy it, you will lose the protection of your garden. In other words, you have to show it a little bit of respect. You need to do it to all plants, but if you have if you do actually have a 10-acre farm with elder, you could think about using it in your agritourism, and just make it a cool thing to see and tell all those stories and all the different spiritual aspects of this plant. And you don't even have to harvest anything. All right, now we get into the growing. Do we have Q&A questions? Let me check.
No questions, Henriette, just a statement that
there's a red berry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There is another kind of, there's a variety of elderberries. There is a red elderberry, which is also native to the US, which is useless. Or not useless, but we are not talking about that one. We only talk about the Sambucus nigra canadensis, the local native one. So you think you want to grow them. Those is like a list you need to go over. See if you have this. If you don't have this, you need to either strengthen what you don't have, or you need to not grow them. If you have sandy soil, you really have sandy soil, just look for something else, or spend 2-3 years to get your soil less sandy, which is a challenge in itself. If you have extremely acidic soil, like I have on part of our land that's more close to the creeks. The elders that we planted there, it was a really pH around 5.5, and they didn't really like that. they want the challenge to really have the best growing elderberries is, first of all, your soil needs to be healthy. And with healthy, I mean, it needs to have the right life in it. It cannot be dead. It's more than just having the right number of the nitrogens. Your soil needs to be healthy. The other thing that's important, you have to have some drainage. At the same time, it needs to hold on to the moisture. So if you have a loam soil, your loam clay-like soil, you're pretty good. And then it's if you have that and the soil is healthy, it's very easy to grow plant. It will like it anyhow. Important for where we are on the eastern shore of Maryland, it does not do well in brackish soil, so you cannot use it for buffer if you live on salt water. If you live higher up on the rivers, it's a very useful plant, but not just too close to the Chesapeake Bay. It will probably not work. Now, it's not a plant that you can plant and then just forget that you have it. You need to maintain this plant. Annual pruning, the weeds can compete too much with it. It requires compost or it requires some kind of fertilizer, whatever way you're growing it. We already mentioned the deer and the birds and probably some other insects that do some damage. The last thing is important. Keep in mind, location and soil has big impact on food quality. You can spend hours figuring out what cultivar you want to start growing. There's a lot of studies. There's also studies that show that no matter what cultivar you grow, the most important thing is the quality of your soil. You can buy a super fancy cultivar, but have bad soil or not the healthy soil. Your fruit will not have the quality that it can have. So spend some attention on the soil and not only on the kind of cultivar. By the way, now I mentioned that at the end of this whole presentation is one slide with like 10 links for more information, practical information and more scientific information. And we will save this and you will be able to revisit this. And we probably can put those links in the chat section. Can we do that, Suzanne? Then the people that already want to look at it, they can already check it out.
And Henriette, this Baron here, you have
yes.
some, while you're on this slide, you do have some questions. So at any moment that you're ready to take questions, we can
okay.
We can bring them up.
What smallest space do you recommend for growth? Well, as an example, when I grew up, my mom had an elderberry in her little backyard in the Netherlands, which was probably, the whole backyard was probably 30 feet by 20 feet. So you can do it. The thing is, it will take in some place, but then if it's generally advised to have two elderberries at least in order to get fruits. So if you have an area where there are no elderberries, you need to have 2 plants, which is still possible. There's no limit. The plant itself, if you maintain it, you can put a plant on your balcony. Probably won't do very well, but you will definitely get some of the berries. Maryland Eastern Shore, very sandy. Plant up the edge or just inside the woods for better results. You can, there are areas at the Eastern Shore that are extremely sandy. Yes, you can plant them on the edge of the woods, or you can plant them right inside the woods. If the soil is better, they will grow with part shade. They don't grow with total shade, but part shade is okay for them. And part shade, I mean, if they get like 3-4 hours sun on a day, they'll be okay. Will we go in detail over pruning? Yes, we'll get that later. Is it best to get started? We'll get on that too later. Sunshade, yeah, they do well in partly shade, but they really need to have a little bit of sun. And they do better in the full sun. Is that all questions? Yes. Open, hang in. Yeah, we did everything. How to grow, this was a question. So how to grow, how to start them, how to maintain them. You see the photo, this is, we bought at UMES, we bought those cuttings last year. They are, actually, we do this webinar too late because I noticed that most of the cuttings are sold out, sadly enough. It's like everything else, it went very quick this year. Anyhow, cuttings you can make yourself, and there's still a couple of places that's still selling them. You want to have 3 eyes, plant 2 eyes in the soil and 1 on top of it. Those are the winter cuttings, the ones that you can do right now before the leaves are coming out. Plant them in the soil with or without rooting powder. It doesn't really make much of a difference. They will get leaves before they get roots. So when you see leaves, you still cannot plant them. You need to carefully pull at them and see if they form roots. It'll take about 10 weeks. It takes relatively long. You can put them in soil. If you have children, it's really fun to put those things in water so they can see the development of the roots. When you do them in the water and later on you put them in the soil, they will be in shock. So they will be growing in the beginning a little bit less, but you have the fun of being able to see how those plants roots. They get roots and leaves, so it's neat. When you make your own cuttings, this is a practical lesson I learned. When you make your cuttings, the top of your cuttings should be flat. The bottom of your cuttings should be not flat, at an angle, because that's the only way that you, without a lot of thinking, that's how you will remember what side is up and what side is down. Plus it's easier to stick them in the soil if you have an angle on it. All right, keep moist. Irrigation is sometimes used, but keep moist in those pots. Put them outside, relatively protected of storms and snow and really bad circumstances. If you put them in for protection, if you put them in the house or in a greenhouse or in a hoop house, you have to be careful. They cannot get too hot. They don't like hot. The roots will only grow if it's relatively cold. So keep them outside, protect them, and keep them wet. Really important to keep them moist. You transfer them to your area that needs to be really weed-free. This is something that really surprised me. It's a native plant, but they do not compete well with weeds. So you want to, basically, if you have the patience, you want to grow more, you want to grow like an acre of these plants, you should really start with a cover crop and really get rid of all the weeds that you have. You can plant them just in circles, like one here, one there, whatever you want, if you want to have a natural garden. But every time, make sure you cover the surrounding of it with compost and some wood chips. Or you can do a paper protection, or you can do a plastic protection. If you do the plastic ground cover, you will limit your shoots that will come up next to it. So personally, I don't really like that too much. Irrigation, if you want to make money off this plant, it's probably good to have irrigation if you have water at the field where you're growing, which is not always the case. If you don't do the irrigation, then at least the first year, be ready to water them somehow. Like drive through it with a tractor or a lawnmower and water them with one of those tanks that you can spray out, or just with buckets or something. But realize that before you plant them, you need to spend time on those things. It's not like they just will grow. First year, do not prune them. Don't touch them unless there's dead parts or unless for some reason they were diseased. Second year and all the years after that, you start to prune them to keep the dead branches out of it. You also want to thin them so there is a free airflow going through, just like what you do with a peach tree. Yeah, groundhogs. If you have groundhogs, Groundhogs were a new thing for me because I'm not from this area, and I thought they were really cute how they were sitting and pulling the little leaves down and eat them, up till I realized that they do a lot of damage if you let them do it. This was the first time in my life that I asked my neighbor to shoot an animal, and I really don't feel right about doing that. So it's better if you have groundhogs, and it's better to have a metal screen surrounding them. Deer, we'll talk about deer later. I want to talk about deer at the moment. Your harvest starts in the second year. Some cultivars you want to mow down the first year. We'll get to that. Let me see what we have for questions. Started in pots. Is it best? Yeah, is it best to get started in pots? No, you don't have to. If you are able to water them in your land, and if you have a good quality soil, you can plant them right into the land, into the field or your garden. Just make sure that you protect them and that you water them. It needs to stay moist. Yes, elderberries are very shallow rooted. The roots go on the surface. It makes it more sensitive for long periods of drought because the roots don't go deep to pick up the water. Slides will be made available to you. Do you submerge lower ice in the water? If I put them in water, I mainly do one eye underwater. Sometimes I do two. It really depends how the eyes are, but they need at least one eye under the water. And keep on refreshing the water. Throw it out after a couple of days and add new ones. Add new water. So to be colors of 4 weeks, or can you plant cuttings as in picture right away now in spring? Yes, you can cut them, let them sit for 1 day to let them dry out just a little bit, and then you can plant them. So I just said you can't buy them anymore. If you have friends with elderberries, go over there and cut a couple of those branches off. Pick the ones that are about half an inch thick, maybe a little bit less. I would say like 1.5 centimeter, which is half an inch. Is leaf mulch okay? Leaf mulch, you can use leaf mulch as long as you cut it up, the leaves, you shred them, otherwise it will sit there forever. Danger with leaf mulch is that it attracts some insects that you don't want to have there. If I can start, can I stick a branch in my pond which has fish? Give it a try. It's not like they're rare, so if you do a couple of cuttings, you can give it a try. Just protect it. I don't know what the fish will do with it, but it's probably a pretty nice idea if you have. Yeah, it'll work, but you have to take them out when they start rooting. They cannot stay in the pond. They don't do well in water. It's not a marsh plant. Will the plant harm livestock? No, livestock will harm the plant. The animals that eat the berries, that eat the leaves, will not get harmed by it. Oh, will you please read out other people's questions aloud? Okay, yes. May you go into detail about what the third eye means, 3 eyes means? The eye is can you see that on, if I do this? This is the eye. The eye is where the leaves will come out, or the roots. So if you don't have an eye in the soil, the rooting will take more time. Now, very often they don't root out of the eye, but the new leaves always come up out of them, which you can see here. So yes, you can do 2 eyes, but you have to have at least 2. One above, 1 in. That's the rule.
Henriette, can I interject there?
Yes.
Okay, so the eye is a node, and in the node, that's where the nutrient lies. So if you have a node insert in the soil, that is gonna send out more roots. That's basically where the growth take place. So the growth will come, leaf growth will come from the node, which is like a joint. And in the joint, there are excess nutrients to continue production, growth production. For the one that is going to go in the bottom, whether it's soil or water, then it's like the endosperm that has a nutrient, and so it's like the mother continuing to support the baby, so it will give off all the things that the plant need. And so the root sometimes comes from the node, or it will come above the node, but you must ensure that you have a node in the soil or the water, wherever you're going to put that plant to start continuous growth.
Thank you. That's the science behind this. Thank you. Some here, Jared says, I have a handful of potted plants and rooted cuttings if anyone is looking for a small quantity. So I don't know how we can get people in touch with Jared. Maybe you can put it in the chat and share that with everybody. Then everybody can directly connect with you. Okay. We'll get to more questions. Yeah, so this was this part. What you really need to understand is the two things so far that are really important. The soil needs to be really healthy. The other thing that's really important, this is not a plant for very lazy people. It requires work. The pruning, the making sure it has water, making sure it doesn't dry out, check later, we'll see, check on pests, protect it from the deer. It's not something you just put in like a oak tree and then you forget about it and you come back next year, you pick the berries. Definitely not. But it's fun. It's fun to take care of it because if you take care of it, it will do well. Threats. So yeah, following up on what I just said, one of the main threats that we experienced is the weeds. If you have a former corn field and you want to switch to growing elderberries, which would be probably a good idea depending where you are, you cannot just plant them in there. You will have too many problems with the weeds. Every weed that exists on the eastern shore will come up in your empty soybean field as soon as you stop treating the field with like how you used to do it. So you want to grow 1 year with some kind of good cover crop, just to enrich the soil and to protect it from more weeds. I mentioned here for cover crop, orchard grass or any kind of perennial grass or a mixture is a good idea. For the first year, you can use white clover, peas to bring a little more nitrogen in the soil. If you know you're going to have a deer problem, stay away from the clover and the peas because you will only be attracting the deer. And then the next year they are like, hey, there was a really good clover last year here. But now we have those elderberries we can eat. So don't feed the animals that you want to get rid of. One thing prevents sedge from growing. Sedge is a native grass. It's part in the life cycle for the elder sawfly. I'm not totally sure about which one it is, but anyhow, there is a pest that will lay the eggs in the sedge, so you have to get rid of that. Other thing people advise, you start growing this commercially, you're growing for your acre, get rid of every native elderberry in your environment, as long as it's your land, which to me just feels totally wrong to do, but it makes sense because the existing elderberries are the carriers of the diseases that you want to prevent. So if you go for the commercial growing, that's something you should consider to do. Here we are with the deer. I'm personally, my partner and I, we are a little frustrated with deer because they really destroyed most of our elder trees, elder bushes. They eat the leaves, and in the winter they break the stems. They can be very annoying. Now, not everybody lives in an area where we are, so for a lot of people it won't be that much of an issue. If you just have a few deer walking through it, you're okay. The best protection is a fence. Just put a 8-9 feet high fence around it. Ask somebody who knows how to do this how to do it, because if you don't do it the right way, the deer will be able to break through it. You can also spray with a repellent. There's a whole series of repellents that you can buy. It works really good. It stinks. The one we used was based on blood. It really stinks. But it really worked. The only thing is one big rainstorm and you have to do it again. So it's ongoing work, which if you have 100 trees like we had, it's just too much. If you just have 5 plants in your garden somewhere, you can do it. It's okay. You can also just surround the trees with the individual trees with some kind of metal framing. That's what my neighbor does, and that seems to work pretty good. Then the frame needs to be so high that the tree that comes out of the frame is so high that the deer cannot get to it. Other thing we have tried is plant plants. They hate strong smelling plants. We have planted elderberry, or I've planted holy basil surrounding my elderberries. They didn't really care about the holy basil. They just walked through it. The only thing that was successful are plants really with nasty needles, like we had a March rose. That really works. The problem is it will also cover up the elder, and the elder won't grow anymore. But you can do it. You can surround it with original March roses. The other thing which seemed to help is if you have another field and you do on the other field, you grow your white clover and your peas. You grow something that the deer like year round. So then they go to that other area. Let me see if we have some more questions here.
I can help with those questions too, Henriette.
It's like bamboo. Where is the best place to buy elderberry plants? And is it better to plant in spring or in fall? You can buy the plants, the grown plants. They're still for sale. You can buy them at several locations where they sell native plants. Yesterday I checked the Maryland DNR plant. I don't know what's the name of this. It's a nursery where they grow native trees. They don't have them. They always had them, but they don't have them this year. They're sold out in a lot of places, but any garden center that sells native plants has elderberries. It's just you're gonna pay like $15-20 for them, where if you could just buy the cuttings, you get them for $2 or $3. In the back at the end where the websites are that I give, there are 2 links to places where they sell the cuttings. And one of them is not sold out, so you better check that really quick. Can you companion plant comfrey or something else below them to help draw up nutrients since they are shallow rooted? Yes, comfrey is actually a good combination in any kind of orchard, exactly for that reason. Also, comfrey is not a favorite plant for the deer. I mean, they will snack on it, but they don't really like it, unless there is absolutely nothing else to eat for them. I have a European elderberry and I'm planting it in Wilmington, North Carolina. The only spot available is a very swampy spot. Can you suggest any irrigation methods? How much soil to replace, what to amend it with, and will European do okay? European elderberries, weird enough, don't seem to be doing very well in the United States, unless you have a cultivar. There's a cultivar March. is a cultivar. That will do fine. That's growing very well here. If you have a regular European elderberry, it's going to be hard to keep it alive. The only advantage is that probably they do better with moist areas, because I know in the Netherlands they can deal better with moist. Irrigation methods, how much soil? Yeah, that's going to be, I would just plant it and see if it works, and make sure you take a couple of cuttings before you plant it, so you have some in reserve, so you can change it. Julie, I'm growing for the sake of insects to support local wildlife. Are there native plants that serve as beneficial cover crops that won't host pests for the elderberry? I have native sedge in the yard. Is it okay as long as it isn't close to the elderberry? It's not really okay, but you can take the risk. I mean, you're not growing in order to make money with it if you grow them for the wildlife. Native plants, yeah, you need to look into that. If you have native plants, you can just make a circle free of your native plants, like a 2 feet wide circle, and put your elderberry in there. And then I don't really know how. I mean, I do know how to plant the native plants, but that's a whole different subject to answer now. I would just free it up from a couple of native plants and just put them in there and protect their 2 feet surrounding with some kind of cover. We just received, somebody's lucky. Will they flower? We just received and planted bare root bushes. Will they flower this year? Will we be able to harvest this year, or wait until next year? Wait until next year. You will damage the growth of the plant if you start harvesting right away. You do want to, at the end though, you want to take the elderberries off, but really after they are totally ripe. And then of course you want to pick a couple just to have them. I mean, it's just sad to grow them and not to use them. But don't pick the flowers, definitely, and also don't prune them the first year. Prune them after the second year. All right, the threats. Threats number 2, there's some, get rid of this. This is a list of things, animals, fungi that can damage your elderberries. All honestly, we have never had the elderberries being destroyed by any of those small creatures. It's only been the deer. Japanese beetle can be really very damaging. What you want to make sure is if you have a crop that has the berries at the same time as the Japanese beetles come, it's going to be challenging. If you have an earlier crop, an earlier harvest, you won't have that much issues with them. The Japanese, they will do damage, but it's not going to totally destroy your harvest. The one that I have seen, we have 2 that we have really seen. It's that spotted wing. That's that little creature you have here. They lay their eggs in the berries. It damages the berry, and the berry will get flat. So when you harvest the berries, you have those almost rotten berries in between there, which is just, it's irritating. More severe is that they put their egg in, it will come out, the larvae will sit in there, and if you harvest the berries and you have the larvae in there, they will be in there, whatever you're going to do with it. So they will continue to grow unless you cool them off right away. So the advice is pick your berries and plunge them in really cold water as soon as you can. That will stop those larvae. The little white caterpillar, that's one I've seen. They're really irritating if you harvest the flowers. You don't want them on there. If you start drying them, before you dry them, you can shake them out. mostly. And you need to do a visual inspection. You need to do that with anything you start drying. Tomato ring spot virus is basically really important if you grow them on a field where you have grown tomatoes or any plant in that family. It's the photo that we have here. That's no, that's the next one. That's the mites. The tomato, if you had grown tomatoes on that field, you want to have a whole year of cover crop to get rid of whatever virus is left. Also, when you buy your plants for commercial growing, you want to look for virus-free plants because you don't want to introduce this. If you grow them just for a natural buffer, it doesn't really matter. You will have more plants and you can afford to lose a couple of branches. If you do it commercially, you basically cannot. The mites, I think there was the one that damaged our plant last year, but we are not totally sure. That it was new to us at that time. And I've never had any disease on the elderberries that I have grown in a totally natural area, in a totally natural field. That had it been grown, nothing had been grown in there for the last 15 years. A main thing what to do for pests is just look around, walk your fields. Again, it's not a lazy plant, you have to check it. Walk it, and as soon as you see a branch like this attacked by the mites, prune it off, take it away and burn it, get rid of it. Don't let it sit on the land. Check for whatever pest, whatever fly or insect you have. And if it's really a problem, then come to us and ask, what are we going to do? I cannot say in general, do this or that for it. There's different approaches to different ones. I haven't talked about growing organic or not organic. If you grow if you want to grow for the supplement industry, if you have a buyer, and we'll talk about that more in 2 weeks. If you grow for the supplement industry, they almost always require organically grown. So if you're planning on doing that, start out with looking into what is the requirements for growing organic. If you want to make your own products with it and you don't care to get some to use non-organic fruits, then you don't have to do it organic. It's up to you. Obviously, if you start selling elderberry syrup, it's really a much more marketable product if it is organic, especially because people give it to their kids. If you do grow non-organic, then there are not that many pesticides that have been approved for elderberries. So your choice of pesticides is limited. Let me see for the questions here. I have also Sampo hybrid and American. Sorry to bug you. Should I plant both in Wilmington, Sampo, and European, or Europe and American 6 feet apart? Just combine them. It's good to have several hybrids or several cultivars. They cross-pollinate and you get stronger plants, stronger fruits too. So yeah, plant them 6 feet apart, okay, or further. There's a lot of disagreement on the distance. Sorry for that phone. It'll stop. There's a lot of disagreement for the distance between plants. You can grow them 3 feet apart, anywhere between 3 to 6 feet apart. It, for a big part, depends on how you're going to maintain it. If you have a tractor that has to drive through it, you want to have the size of the tractor. If you have a little lawnmower, your 42-inch lawnmower, then put them 50 inches apart from each other. So it really depends your tools. If you cut them off on a regular basis and keep them relatively narrow, you can plant them every 4 feet on distance. And that the distance between the lines also depends your tool that you're going to use. Do not leave berries on the tree. Yes, if you leave the berries and the birds don't eat them, they will be a source for insects to come in, and then the insects will go from the berries into the tree or the bush and into the soil underneath it. So don't leave the fruit rotting on the tree. It's not really a problem because birds will eat it, but in case.
While you're looking at that, just to let you know, we have about 10 minutes.
I know. Let me go quick here. Long-term plan, yeah, just look at this photo. This guy is Ben, he's about 6 feet. So this plant is about 12 feet high, which makes it very hard to harvest. He was standing on a ladder to harvest the berries later, which you want to prevent. You want to prune them on time to prevent that they get this big. Let's go to the next one. This is more important. When to harvest, you harvest them when the berries are extremely dark. Let me see if I can. Can you guys see this? Anyhow, I zoomed in. What you get with berries is they will turn dark red, dark, whatever color this is, and they have to be shiny. That is really, really important. If you harvest them before, you won't have the right sugar level. What you see on the flower is that they don't all flower at the same time. So you have this cluster of flowers, but some are ready to be picked, some are not ready to be picked. When you choose your cultivar, the more modern cultivars, they don't really have that issue. The native ones have this issue. So you can pick like half of a cluster. It's just gonna be worrisome. As an example, you can buy a processor for $9,000. If you're a large grower, there is a YouTube film that you can check it. You can also buy small containers to get the stems of the berries. Yeah, I wanted you to have this different kinds of elderberries that you can buy that are on the market. If you live more north than the Eastern Shore, you have to go for the Adam. There is an Adam 1 and an Adam 2, and there's more cultivars that will do better in the cold area. If you live in a relatively warm summer area, then the Bob Gordon or the Wilderwood are advised. Both of them can be cut off at the end of every year. You can just, there's people that drive over it with their lawnmower and just cut them flat off. The harvest is always on the new stems, on the 1 year growth, where the native ones and all the European ones, they need to be harvested on the 2nd year's growth. So if you live in an area with a strong frost, strong or very cold winter, you cannot cut them down. It will damage, the frost will damage them. That's why we advise them for more warmer areas. The other thing you need to look at is, when do I want my harvest? Some have a late harvest, some have an early harvest. If you grow for medicine this March, the cultivar of the European is probably the best. It's tested a lot on medicinal value, which the supplement industry that's going to buy your berries will be checking for that kind of value. Where if you grow for taste, you want one with more sugar in it. The Bob Gordon is specially grown for winemakers. It's a very popular plant. It's also used for syrups. Here we have the finances. So just want to make sure this is not like my plan, or this is not something you should even follow. It's just an indication. Let's just summarize it. You're planting your establishment. total, if you buy the destemmer, you're at almost $14,000. If you do it without, you're almost at 5,000 for 1 acre of elderberry. So your investment is not that awfully big. It really depends. Like I'm paying all my employees in this example $15 an hour. You probably won't. I definitely forgot things. It depends what you have. If you don't have a disc or a tiller, you have to buy tiller. You have to buy something to spread the cover crop. So if you're starting farmer, your cost will be much more than that. Now, and fencing around 1 acre will be about 4,000. Annual costs about 4,000. Now here we get at the funny part. Harvest, the 3rd year on my 1 acre, if I can sell, if I can sell it for $3 a pound, is $15,000. So your profit is around 11,000. That seems extremely nice to me, and it got me suspicious about my calculation. But if you look in the Midwest, there's a lot of new farmers that start growing this, and this is supposed to have everything perfect. So it misses your 1 year of ground cover, the first, or your 1 year of cover crop. There's a lot of estimates. If you're interested in really doing a calculation, if it's worth to do this, please connect with us, and we can work this out in a way that it's working. Let me see, we have some questions here. Do they make a good wine? Yes, they do make a very nice wine if you do it right, as always. They have a lot of sugar in them. You still need to add a little bit of sugar, but it's a good start, and it's an absolutely gorgeous color. Can any of these cultivars be grown in zone 6B? I would think 6B would still be good for the Bob Gordon. If you have any doubt, call the company where you're going to buy it from and see what they say and do a little bit of a reading on it. But I think you should be okay. The problem, if you buy the ones that are really for a cold area and you are in a warmer area, you're growing, they don't have the ideal circumstances. So your fruit is not going to be as good as it can be. Basically, you won't get enough sweetness in the berry. So let me go. Where can you purchase elderberry plants? Yeah, let me go to my next thing here. How many minutes do we have? Very, very few. This is the last page. This has all these links, and I don't know how to get them to work. You can buy your elder cuttings at River Hills Harvest. And in all honesty, you can no longer buy your cuttings, but you can buy your plants there. Norm's Farms is another commercial elderberry farm that sells their plants. And then you can find them locally, and you can find them at like native plant sales. That's where we sell them. And my own farm, we sell very, very few cuttings, but we do have some. If you're locally and you want to cut off some cuttings, that's a different story. Come by and feel free. Let me see. I would definitely, if you're interested in growing, go to all these links. There's a couple of totally science links about the value, the difference in growing methods, the impact on the quality of the fruit. That's it. As I said, any question somewhere? I love this photo, by the way. The flowers are so pretty, and they're big. This is like 1 foot, a circle of 1 foot. It's amazing. Oh yeah, this is the next class. There's a ginger growing class, and then there is another elderberry class in 2 weeks, and we will let you know what the link is. But that's about the marketing and added value products and the legal requirements. Yes, I thought there was a phone number from us on here, but I don't see it.
Thank you, Henriette. And if-
Strictly, hang in, there's 2 strictly medicinal in Oregon, good tool for many varieties. Yeah, strictly medicinal in Oregon, but we are in Maryland, so I try to stay away from buying plants in Oregon, but they do. You can get the seeds as well. I planted my elderberries in 2019. You should call me because that's weird. You should have had fruits last year. So give me a call. There must be something going on there. Well, thank you everybody for listening. I hope it was useful. I hope you learned something. And I want to see all those soy fields replaced with elderberry fields now. So good luck. Let me know if you have questions. Dr. Burton and we both will be able to help you out here. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Henriette. We certainly appreciate it. Dr. Burton, you as well. We want to thank you all, as Henriette mentioned, for joining this session. If you have registered for this event, certainly we should have your email, so you will be put on our e-news listserv to receive updates or any other upcoming events that we'll be sponsoring in the near future. I know Henriette did allude to a couple of the events that we're going to be having coming up. We will be sending you information regarding those events as well. Some of you did inquire about the PowerPoint. I believe we are going to make that available on the website. Is that correct, Suzanne? Henriette, okay, yes. So we're going to make the PowerPoint available. As a matter of fact, we're going to also include the recording of this session as well. So if it was something that you missed, you need to go back and play it again, you will have the opportunity to do that. And maybe what we can do is send you all a email once that information is put up on our website. But I would expect that in the coming week or so, once we go through and edit if necessary. Well, that's all we have. Again, on behalf of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore Extension Program, the Small Farm Team, we thank you for your attendance today, and we look forward to you joining us for one of our future events. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.